here's my cat, so they gets her blood pressure up once a day, gets her on the couch. No, he comes about 8 o'clock. Some nights he gets bread. Tonight he's getting a bean burger that my husband didn't like.
It is just morning now, so.
It's very
Let's hope that he likes it.
Opossum, you have a pet opossum.
Well, it could be 5 different possums because they all look alike, so I don't really know.
Yeah, that's true.
But sometimes it's a raccoon. But he
Well,
did.
this was a few months ago, so I don't know, what road are you on? Oh, okay.
And you know if you have.
I don't know how far possums.
I do have it, but I will welcome a printed
I'm
copy.
like, what the heck is that?
Oh, we have a skunk that lives under we have a shed that keeps gas cans. We saw the skunk go.
One more thing, these
Yeah.
are the
And I
minutes
did
from
some
the
one day, and
21st,
enough
which
rain,
you
the whole
had
yard's gonna
approved,
collapse.
but
Okay.
didn't sign the backup, so I was
Oh,
thinking I
would
could
you?
do the trim.
See, I have those now.
Yeah, certainly. All I have is a pen too, Andy, so.
Towards the field.
I mean, a pencil. Sorry, I have a pencil.
I do, and it's, runs out there, it
Yeah.
sniffs all around all the time, and
That helps, because we don't have a dog now, so it,
I think there's like a whole family of them. I think there's like 15 of them.
we have
Every
just
once
about
in a while, they
everything.
walk into the yard.
We've had bear, bobcat,
Yeah,
foxes,
bobcat,
yep. I mean,
fox. Well, for some reason, the
Porcupine.
fox that we did have ended up dead in my yard. I don't know why, but, and I called just to see what to do with it or whatever, and they just told me to throw it in the woods. Ooh, jeez, not throw your pen at you, but throw it in the woods, and it will be taken care of. I'm like, we don't know why it's happening.
The cops have come over and helped us, and Fish and Game's come over and helped us with that sick raccoons in my yard. They came over,
Really?
we had a sick one on our deck, and he came over, they put it down on the
Really?
deck. Yes.
So it was just sort of hanging out there or whatever?
It was obviously very ill.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this just ended up dead in my yard.
Good evening,
I
madam.
don't know why.
I think you might be the lone select person, isn't it?
Oh, where's
Congratulations, you're a
Hello.
winner.
the team? Where is everyone?
I'm not sure exactly, but
Okay,
I saw a couple of emails.
part-time self-boarding.
And we are at 6 o'clock. So since we don't have a quorum of select members.
There you go.
I'm going to start this meeting of the Advisory Budget Committee.
Do we have a select, do we have a quorum of the budget?
You're a four of you, so
Yeah.
I think you do.
Yeah.
Good.
We do. All right, so we have a pretty tight schedule here today. So first, I'd like to invite Paul Stoller with Waypoint.
Which is not here.
Not here.
So who's,
Who is here?
I'm Fred Wolf with Ready Rides.
From
Let's do it.
Wolf with Ready Rides. Okay. Are you filling in for another one of your
yeah,
colleagues
who's the
from Ready
girl that
Rides?
usually?
Tasha?
Yeah.
Yeah. I live in town, so she lives over in Stratford,
Oh,
so.
so you said, hey, I'll go.
Right.
That's cool.
Thank you. Nice to see more faces anyway, so it's good.
Whoa, look at you. Official.
So we're a nonprofit volunteer organization. We've been
Would you like
in.
to come up and join us?
Come join us.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Lisa from the, oh, come on. Hi.
So we're a volunteer nonprofit organization. We've been in existence for 10 years now. And our mission is we provide transportation to medical appointments for people over 55 and for those who are disabled. This past, for our fiscal year, we have 10 people in town who use our services. Last year, we provided 178 round trips to those individuals. And they get to that because people are in dialysis. They may have to go through dialysis 3 times a week. And so many of those individuals are using this multiple times a week or a month. Averages out to almost 18 round trips per person in town. And so you should have received from Tasha a letter.
Yep.
Okay.
Send to us.
And over the last 10 years, you've kindly donated $1,500 to Ready Rides, as have the other 8 towns that we do work with. Newmarket, Stratford, Nottingham, Barrington, Madbury, Newmarket, Northwood, a lot of towns. Epping just joined on this year, so Epping's just getting started. So, and we have a number of volunteer drivers who spend their time using their own vehicles to drive people to their medical appointments. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Just out of curiosity, do you guys go down to Boston, like bring people to appointments in Boston?
We do. Again, as long as we can find somebody willing to do it. And sometimes it all depends on the weather and people's schedules, but we'll take people to Boston or anywhere that they need to go. The one challenge we do have is for people in wheelchairs. We work with Coast over in Portsmouth, and we, the person will notify us. We call Coast, say we need your handicapped accessible van. They provide the service, usually. But what happens is, and this has happened for one individual here in town, Coast has the right to cancel if they get a request within their own jurisdiction, and they can cancel us within 24 hours. So a person's expecting us to come pick them up, and the night before we have to call and cancel. As a result, we're in discussions with some other organizations who can provide services that would not be canceling on us like that. But in this case, this individual has her own handicapped accessible van, and she's willing to let someone drive it, to drive her to her medical appointments. Because of the nature of our organization, we can't use her van to drive her around, unfortunately. So if you know people, anybody in town who'd be interested in doing that, we could put that person or those people in touch with this woman and see what they might be able to work out.
Great. How has getting volunteers been? I know that was really challenging a few years ago.
During COVID, we lost a lot of people during
Yeah.
COVID. Our driver pool was probably cut in half
Yeah.
as far as active drivers. It's slowly
Okay.
creeping back up, but it's been slow. And we have, you know, when you walked into the police station coming in the doors on the left, we have our sign up for looking for drivers. There's one over at the library, one in the church. So we're doing what we can to try to find more drivers.
I know Taja said when you advertise looking for drivers, you normally get more rides needed, and like not percentage-wise, the fill-in, so.
We usually get more requests for rides as a result
Right,
than drivers.
yes.
So, as far as how it works, obviously you have volunteers and they use their own cars, right? Do you help them with gas?
They're reimbursed at 50 cents a mile.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, so that's how that all works. We get also funding from the state and the feds to help offset all the costs, because you can drive somebody to Boston, you can imagine the
Right.
50 cents a mile.
It could be a,
Yeah, but we're in pretty good shape, and so that's how that works. And all the drivers have to go through criminal background checks, go through half a day of training with our executive director, Tasha, who you've gotten that letter from. And some people drive 5, 6, 7, 8 times a week, and other people drive once a month. Anybody wants to drive, has free time?
how would you go about doing that?
I'd put you in touch with Taj, and she would call you, make arrangements for you guys to meet. She would go through the training and everything. We have an online, people that need rides, they can either call Taj or do it online. Drivers can go online, I can take that person that day, and then that driver calls that person.
So it's, you have them in the system, they go through all the background check. If they're available and say, oh, I can take them, they just click on that and say, I accept that.
Right,
And they take that ride.
exactly,
Otherwise, if they're busy and they can't do it, then they don't accept the ride.
exactly.
Great.
Is this correct that for fiscal year '24, you only requested $750 from us, is that right?
That is correct, because we were going through COVID and our ridership was way down.
Got it, okay. Okay. Any other questions?
I think so.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, may I ask who we have in the audience?
Oyster River Lemonade?
Okay, Oh, you
together,
guys are
yes.
both in the same, okay, wonderful. Well, I would invite you to come up, please, since you're the only
Bring a chair.
other
Oh,
organization
right,
here.
yes, of course.
Thank you very much.
Yes. It's too bad Scott's not here. He's on your board, right? Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Buckley's on the board?
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't believe he is.
What's it? Oh, he's not, okay. Well, here you go.
He was.
You're not updated, sorry.
She's an honorary member of the
That's
ABC.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, you don't want to be awkward and say.
Last year, I did the
Oh.
whole business, but
And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves.
Okay. I'm Kathy Temple. I joined Mr. Illuminate, I think in June. So I'm excited to be here.
Nice to meet you.
And I'm Aubrey Bussey. I've been on Oyster River Limited since 2021 now. So I think I've been here, this is like my third year over there.
Okay, wonderful.
So it's so nice to see some faces that I recognize. Well, you, some of us. I was going to say that I typed up a little thing just because I think I'm more articulate within all this. So, you know, I'm now in the marketing position for Oyster River Women-Aid, and our name may be misleading to some, but I always like to say that our organization welcomes men and women on the board, and we also serve anyone in the Oyster River community. Oyster River Women-Aid is a mighty team of 9 neighbors residing in Durham, Lee, Madbury, Newmarket, and founded in 2006, which is incredible to me because we've been around since, for 17 years. The mission of Oyster River Women-Aid is to provide short-term financial assistance to those in need. And we work hard to strengthen the sense of community among our Oyster River residents. And how does it work? We collaborate with validators who typically work as a social worker, pastor, school nurse, and they've been actively working with the individual or family as a client. Validators fill out an online application, and it goes straight to our caseworker, who then manages the back and forth that sometimes can happen, and making sure that they have all the information that they need, and then it comes to us to vote on, and we try to get a payment out as quickly as possible. What I love about it is that we can have a very quick turnaround time. If someone is in dire straits, we can get a check within 2 days. The other thing that I really like about Oyster River Women-Aid, and I feel like I say this every year, it's how different we can use our funds. It doesn't have to be just straight rent. It could be tires, it could be a laptop, it could be a medical device. It's just really amazing that we're able to just be a little bit more flexible than most nonprofits out there. So yeah, that's one of my biggest things. So how's it going? As I said, it's 17 years of Neighbors Helping Neighbors, and as we look back from the year, many of our neighbors were trying to stay afloat through job loss, food insecurity, and much more. From assisting physically disabled single father of 2 girls with his car payment, to paying rent for a family with a 5-year-old with a brain tumor, and to purchasing a mattress for a disabled woman living on a fixed income that was sleeping on the floor. Those are just a few things that we've helped just in the town of Lee alone. And we're always continuing to, every year, I think in the last 2-3 years since I've been on the board, we've also donated to the School Nurses Fund. So that is going out to Newmarket, Oyster River, and we are going to donate to Barrington as well, just because they're so close, and then we're starting to see some need there too. So that's just a little bit about us and what we do, and I'd like Kathy to share with you a story or two.
Yes. So first I want to say that the reason I joined Oyster River Women-Aid was because it just really touched my heart what they did. So in my career, I started my position as a branch manager at the First Seacoast Bank in Durham in February. And I think it was like April, May timeframe, I found out from our marketing director that we were giving, a grant to Oyster Ruminate. I didn't know what they did. And so I started to look and research because I was gonna be one presenting the money and I wanted to know. And just reading the stories and seeing what they did on the website, I was like, I want to be a part of this, and so I met with Jan Dean, our president, and Cheryl Hoffman, our treasurer, I think it was, they came in to do the check thing and the picture and everything, and when I sent them a thank you, and it was so nice to meet you, I said, I really want to get involved, and I didn't expect that I'd be joining the board, but I knew I wanted to get involved, and they said, do you want to join the board or just, help with fundraising? I said, you know what, let's do this. I'm going to join the board. And so I was so happy that I did. And just some of the stories, one of the ones that touched my heart, we, touched upon was the family with the 5-year-old son with the brain tumor. And his mother had just started a job at UNH and she had to keep missing time because she had to bring him to his appointments and this and that. And they weren't getting paid and they fell behind on rent. And it's just nice, like Aubrey said, that we can help with those situations and so quickly. There was also a story that I had read back, it was before I was on the board, it was in 22, but it was also a Lee resident. She had a son who had some medical issues and he was young and he wasn't able to go to preschool or socialize, and she wanted to send him to the Y camp and she didn't have enough money to do it. And she did get a scholarship from them, but it wasn't enough, and we were able to make up the difference. And, I just have to say on a personal note, I was a single mom, and so I had some issues that came up. And one year my daughter, I live in Newmarket, and she did go to the rec camp, and one year I didn't know if I was going to be able to pay for it. And, I did get a scholarship, which with my income, I couldn't sometimes qualify for things like that, because I made too much money, but yet it's still not enough at times to pay for those extra things. And so I was able to get her a scholarship, and I don't know who donated that money, but I know that we donate some to the rec camps and things. And so when I saw that, I thought, oh my gosh, so I've been touched by, what organizations like ours do too. So yeah, it's been really meaningful.
That's great. Do you guys have any questions for us?
What's your limit these days for, what is the limit on it?
It used to be,
Used to be, what, $500?
It's 1,000
$1,000
now.
now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Probably a little bit more realistic.
Oh, for sure.
And how many shifts every year do you give out, and then how many in the league?
So the 3 are just from 2023. So I didn't count 2022s, but I believe it was about 3 or 4.
I think I sent about 4,
Yeah.
because I was looking through to see, I think we're getting more from.
Yes, and then I would say in 2022, I think we had 68 requests that we provided financial assistance for.
I think, sorry.
I have 68 total and then 4 from league.
Yes.
What kind of other fundraising efforts do you guys do?
Great question. So what we do is we usually have like a marketing, like social media post where we do like Giving Tuesday. We also do New Hampshire Gives. When we first did New Hampshire Gives around 2020, we saw a huge amount from that time frame, and every year it's going down, and I think it's just because everyone's back at work and they're doing their own thing. And then we just had this wonderful thrift store, the Barrington one, thrift store for charity. If you haven't been in there, they have wonderful clothes. But New and Again just had a shopping night for us, and they do that for a lot of nonprofits. So if you know anybody, we were able to.
Yeah, it's a great little shop, and they're just wonderful what they do, so.
Yeah. We try to work very closely with other partnerships, like with UNH. We worked with like the sororities to do a bake sale, and it's a lot of fun.
I just want to point out too that I think it was last year we only donated 1,000, and that was because there was a very, very tight budget for us, and then also we had a very large donation, I think, recently, so we said that we would go back to our original normal donation. We just It was one of those years. We're cutting everything good. But I want everyone else to know, like, why we have that one blip. That's, yeah, it was just a temporary.
Previously, yeah.
No worries, we understand.
And this year you're requesting $1,000?
Yes, I believe so.
Is it 2?
So that's what I was wondering,
I think it's
because,
just 1,000.
is it because you only got 1,000 last year because that's because of the tight budget, or
Oh, no.
why was 1,000 requested?
I'm not quite sure.
Typically, we had given 2,000.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to make sure.
That's why I was looking at it going.
I think, from last year, so I do believe that we were thinking, okay, we only did 4,
Mhm.
and so maybe that was probably it. Our treasurer usually fills out the forms, so that was
Okay.
why.
Then that makes sense.
So perhaps the reduction in the amount requested is the result of maybe just like fewer requests from Lee residents, is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm thinking for
Okay.
last year.
Got it.
Stacy? I would just mention, you folks do reach out deeply into the community. I've had several conversations with your president, Jan Dean, about how they might do more in Lee. I know, at least last year, she was concerned looking at the numbers that Lee seemed to be not reaching out as much as some of the other communities. And as I know Jan has talked extensively with the school, as but she's also had a conversation with Pam Mattingly, our general assistance officer, and has kept us all in the loop about what's available for lemonade.
And I just realized that sometimes when we get requests from the schools, like Wish River Middle, it comes from Durham instead of where.
Even though the people might live, yeah, that's what I was wondering about, and also, yeah,
Right.
it makes sense with Barrington as well.
So, yeah, because we go off of where the request came from,
Mhm.
so, from the school.
Not that I want to add to the budget,
Mm.
however, you might want to go back and just check
Okay.
to see, because even the first time we gave to you, a few years ago, we gave $2,000
Yeah,
right immediately because of what you do, you know, so.
We can adjust what we donate to.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm wondering if she did go by what we were given last year.
I'm wondering,
Use that.
yeah.
That's why I wanted to bring it up, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
for that, yeah.
Andy, do you know if we have posted anything about Oyster River Lemonade in like the e-crier perhaps?
We haven't recently. I have literature in my office. Denise Duval has literature in her front office. The town clerk's office has literature, and I believe I had taken information probably a year ago or so to the library as well.
Okay.
And also talked with all of those people about what they might be
Okay.
able to do.
I also went to the Lee Church and spoke there as well.
A large portion of our donations come from.
All right.
Thanks for
Any
coming.
further questions?
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
So
you very
nice
much.
to see you
Thanks
guys.
for all
Yeah,
your
thank you very much for coming, we appreciate
Do you want
it.
us to have her adjust that amount, or?
I think we have it noted.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, perfect, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, you do, thank you.
You're doing great.
Yeah, we're just prepping her, we're prepping her to be the youngest.
I love it. I love
As soon as
it.
she turns 18,
Someday,
man.
she's gonna be chairman of the
Is
ABC.
there a minimum age requirement?
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Legal voting age, right, 18? So we're ready for it. Let's keep the seat warm, that's fine.
Okay, so I was expecting a lot
I
more
know.
I
in-person
know Kat was
folks.
coming tonight, because I just talked to somebody coming. Somebody was going up the stairs.
Well,
Great.
I don't know how long he's gonna.
If it's just me, are we gonna still meet with John if it's just me tonight, or do we want select
Oh,
board?
is that what it was? Or
Yes.
was it, so it was just for the select board?
Yes,
It wasn't for
right,
the
John, was there
ABC.
something else you wanted to, or was that your ABC stuff?
It's Denise that contacted me,
Okay.
and my understanding was that the purpose was just to show the ABC
Oh, okay, great.
what's in
Yeah,
the
Then-
that's what I
FY25.
thought. Yeah.
Perfect. I apologize, then great.
Okay.
I read the thing wrong when I was at home.
So-
reading the agenda.
So John, are you open to coming to speak to us, knowing that you might be interrupted if we happen to have somebody come in at their scheduled time of 6:30?
Yeah, I mean, it's setting up.
Yeah, great. Even if we just get set up, that's one thing less to do later.
Yeah.
You are so good at that chair.
We were gonna be last, but nobody's here.
Last year, we had like a dozen people.
Waiting.
6
Well,
o'clock.
I'm here.
And we made it very clear, like, if you didn't come, you weren't. And I think this year we were a little gentler, like, because it is so hard to get out.
Denise had followed up with the folks on here, and the folks from Haven are not here this evening because they have their annual major
Yeah.
fundraiser this evening that they want the full staff at. And
We can pick somebody else.
from the homeless center may or may not be here.
Okay, and does everyone know what Haven does? Is there anyone that needs to know? I know what Haven does. Okay.
I think they're ready for you.
Hello.
Oh, ready for me?
What's your name? and
I'm
what-
Erica from Cornerstone DNA.
Okay, yeah, we are ready for you. Thank you very much for being so punctual.
Hello. Hello, hi. I'm Erica Lee. I'm the Advancement Director at Cornerstone VNA. Been there for about 9 years. And I can just give you an overview, correct, of our services. So this year is, we're celebrating 110 years. So it's been fun for me to kind of go back through our history and kind of get some updated information about all that. But we currently serve about 40 communities in New Hampshire and Maine, serving all ages, birth through end of life. We have home care, hospice care, palliative care, life care, which is our private duty program, and we have community care. So we have a lot of community programs that we do. So in the town of Lee, we're very grateful for the services, the support we received. See, last year we served 105 patients in the town of Lee, over 2,000 visits in that year. So through our various programs. And we're always doing a lot to kind of enhance the services that we provide. We do a lot to educate, we provide continuing education for our staff and professional development opportunities. So this year we added 3 vestibular certified clinicians, recognizing a need to help people in their homes improve their balance, to reduce falls and that sort of thing. So we have our newer certified staff are vestibular, lymphedema. We continue to provide telehealth services. We also are really enhancing our behavioral health support too. So we're doing some behavioral health first aid training for our staff so that we can better support our patients in the home. So those are some kind of updates from us. Do you have any questions about our services?
That's a lot of visits.
Yeah.
How many did you say?
It says,
For
so
Lee?
2,000 visits
For
for
Lee?
105 people, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so the agency
You must be
grand
telling me
total, so if you combine all of our, so unduplicated patients last year was 4,400. And then the visit count was over 91,000 visits.
For a total.
Yeah,
of, wow.
yeah, it's pretty impressive.
And what communities do you serve beyond Lee?
So we have over 40 communities, this is our map.
Okay.
In New Hampshire and Maine, so we have about 33 in New Hampshire and 10 in Maine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you operate with full-time staff or volunteer assistants?
Both.
Okay.
So we have about 180 staff now, we've grown quite a bit. About 40 of us are in the office. The rest are field clinicians out on the road providing
I've always
services.
wondered, so I'm an ER doctor, so I've
Yeah.
like worked with you guys.
Yeah, oh, nice.
How many nurses do you have out in the field?
Oh, nurses?
Or clinicians, I guess?
I'm trying to think, well, clinicians about 140.
Okay.
So, but that also includes through our private duty program, some social care service providers, companions, homemakers, LNAs, but I'm not sure the number of nurses. We also have a very large rehab team. So we have over 30 to 40.
Therapy and everything.
Yeah,
you guys
physical-
are in.
Yeah, physical, speech, OT. Our rehab team has grown significantly. And what was the other question you asked me? I don't think I answered. Volunteers. So I'd have to look and see. We probably have 50 to 60 volunteers if you can kind of combine all of them together. We have, of course, our volunteer board, 13 board members, and then we have a very robust volunteer program, and our volunteer manager has really done a excellent job kind of giving people opportunities to support our work. So we have hospice volunteers, of course. We have companion volunteers that go out into the homes to provide respite care or just companionship. We have now 3 caregiver cafes that we do monthly in local libraries, and our goal is, once we have a volunteer established to facilitate those, then we can grow. So now we have 3 volunteers facilitating those monthly cafes. And November is Home Care, Hospice, and Palliative Care Month and Family Caregiver Month. And so as part of that, we're gonna do 3 pop-up caregiver cafes, just to kind of gauge interest in, like Wolfboro is one of them, I'm trying to remember the other ones, but, and then we have like a volunteer who plays music, who will go and play the piano for someone in their home, and, you know, music really touches people, especially those who have Alzheimer's and dementia, and so it's, and we have some volunteers also support with events, so it's pretty neat to see all the different ways, and Peace of Mind is another one too, so we have volunteers that support the pets of hospice patients. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, yeah. So, any other questions? My favorite, thinking of volunteers, different ways that we support our patients, one of my favorites is our Kitty Cornerstone Fund. So we have a fund that we use to have gifts on hand for our pediatric nurse to bring to little kids, and so we can buy equipment if there's a need, or gas cards actually we use to buy to help families get to medical appointments in Boston, because that can be a lot. And sometimes we even just get them gift cards to go out to dinner for families. So lots of really great feel-good things that are happening, and it's a good team. We do amazing work, and we always say they go above and beyond, and they really do.
And a lot of times people can stay in their homes because they have that care where you need to have to fund their whole experience outside, so that's incredible.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, we're just very grateful to the town of Lee for their support. And we have many other towns that support us as well, so that's very helpful for all this. Because there's a lot of services that we provide that are underfunded, like telehealth, palliative care program, those sorts of things. And then, of course, all the community services that we provide. The different clinics, wellness clinics that we do in the different communities as well. So, yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, it's just, I'm just thinking 2,000, that's a lot of.
Yeah, no, we're busy.
Less than $1 each.
It's a busy crew. Actually, I think it's in our annual report, last year we went 732,000 miles that we travel in. And I love the showing people that's actually 29 times around their
Wow.
The amount of traveling that our staff do.
A lot of visits.
That's a lot of visits.
Do you think, and maybe you don't know off the top of your head, but like, is the number of visits for Lee residents like about average for towns of our size, or do you think that it's like somewhat more, somewhat less than
That's a
other
great
similar
question.
towns?
It's not something I've ever really compared, and
Okay.
I'm not really sure that I could answer that, but I can't imagine it's much different than other towns, but I would know the answer to that.
Okay,
without
yeah,
looking
no, that's
further,
okay.
But I can find it.
Yeah, it's not urgent or dependent upon our.
No, that's an interesting question.
So-
Yeah,
Number of
interesting.
people that they
Yeah.
serve in each town.
Yeah, or maybe like if our population is a bit older than some other neighboring
Right.
towns, we might have more visits. Maybe
Yeah,
I was just
it
curious.
could be interesting to look at, because you're right, there could be some towns where there's, like you said,
Demographic.
the demographic is a aging population or health issues that might
And
have.
transportation too, if you have no local transportation, then they're even more vital where
Yeah.
you might be able to get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you work with some of the other organizations? Like we just heard from Ready Rides.
I was wondering the same thing.
Yeah, our social workers are very in touch with a lot of the local resources, and they have their own kind of resource list, and we have some resources like that listed on our website too, but yeah, for sure, we do connect with Ready Rides, a lot of other
Great.
services like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you
so
so
much
much.
for joining us
Appreciate it.
today.
For everything you do.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate the time. Have a good night.
Yeah, thank you too.
Yeah.
Not snowing, not raining.
Take it.
All right. Sir, may I ask what organization you're with?
Red Cross.
The Red Cross,
got a
okay.
hat on.
Wow.
I
Oh,
couldn't
I didn't even notice. Sorry. Okay, are you Richard?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Richard. Well, thank you for being 30 minutes early.
We're gonna let you go early.
We're gonna let you go early.
Since you're here.
Yes, I'm here. I am a resident of town, so it makes it easy.
Wonderful.
Probably the only volunteer from town that we have. So I know you guys have given like $500 for the past several years. We're here asking for the same thing this year. And I want to express our gratitude for that help that you've given us. Fortunately, we haven't had to respond to any disasters here, Lee, that I know of. I've been with them for 2 years and I donate a lot of my time to them. But we do an awful lot. I know you know that what we do around the world in disasters, but locally we do a lot with fires. Or if a tree comes down on a trail that people are left homeless, we go and respond to those type of deals, floods, so forth. I spent time in Vermont. Actually, Hurricane Lee.
Yeah, that was not a fun day.
Right? I know. Fortunately, it didn't land, but we were ready. I spent 5 days up in Stratford at the center up there in a shelter, getting prepared for that. And we had people from across the country, 85 people there, ready to respond if we were needed. But specifically, in Stratford County, this past year, we responded to 25 disasters and helped 65 individuals, mostly in the case of fires or down trees on trailers, like I said. When we go there, we offer them some financial assistance. We also follow up once we take them into the system. We follow up with caseworkers, and we offer health services, mental health services, and spiritual services. So all three of those things are also included in that. We're also available if we had some mass crisis here in town where the fire department was out in a multiple call fire or something, where we would do canteening, where we would supply water and support either the fire or the police departments. We do install smoke detectors for homes. We have a lot of older homes that have the battery operated detectors where you change the batteries and they don't get changed. A lot of elderly people, low-income people have those, and we go in and replace those with 10-year lithium battery smoke detectors, so we're helping those people become safer. Just 2 days ago, I went out and I installed 2 bed shaker alarms. I don't know if you know what those are. They respond to a smoke alarm going off, and there's a vibrator and a unit, so that when it detects that going off, there's a puck under the mattress that vibrates to wake people if they're hard of hearing or they're deaf. And those are like $230 a piece. And I just did 2 of those just the other day. So I don't know if you have any questions or what else you would like to know. We do blood drives. I know they do a couple of blood drives here in town. So that's another way that we support the area.
So aside from the disasters that you guys respond to, how many service calls to Lee residents would you say that you have performed?
Well, that's just it. I think we're lucky in Lee because we haven't really responded
Yeah.
to Lee because we've been so fortunate, but we're here.
Any
if
smoke
something does
alarms
happen.
or any stuff like
And
that
that's
for the
funny, because
residents?
last year, we did a campaign, and I believe I even talked with the lady in the selectman's office down there about putting notice, she was gonna put it, I think, in the town flyer, that we were gonna install free smoke detectors for anybody who wanted. We never got any response.
Okay.
And I've had flyers up at Market Basket, I've put flyers around different places, but people don't seem to respond to them. We probably need to do a better job of getting the word out. We could come and do tabling events if you have something going on, where we could bring some Red Cross materials there and some personnel and maybe get that out. I also thought possibly if we sent something through the school, home, through the children about the smoke alarms, because they may not need it at home, but they may have grandparents that need it, or someone in the family knows someone that needs that type of stuff. But like I say, we're fortunate here. We haven't had those type of issues.
Yeah.
Could we post anything in our,
The
on
e-crier,
on our Facebook page?
Yeah, we can
Oh,
continue
Facebook
it.
page.
It has been in the e-crier.
Yes.
We can certainly renew prominence in the e-crier and put it on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
Facebook tends to get
I'll
some
get some
business.
material so that we
Yeah.
can put something out like that.
You can drop it off to the selectman's
Yeah,
office. with
once a
these.
year, we do, it's called a home fire campaign where they canvass the whole town. We did Rochester last year, and we have people from Maine and all over New Hampshire, some people from Vermont come, and we just go and we install hundreds of smoke detectors. But the fire department usually helps by canvassing the town and getting all the information for us so that we can go out and do that. So it takes a little bit of coordination.
Yeah.
It seems like,
We have Mr. Hebert's truck.
that's right, I'm also the custodian of that truck, so I'm responsible for its upkeep.
Right in the parking lot up to the back of the.
That's kind of nice, and it's right here when we need it.
The other thing, while I'm here, I mentioned this also, I think, to the woman down at Selectman's office, probably the receptionist. We're currently in a building in Hampton, and the building's sold, and we're gonna have to move out, so we're looking for a place. And I asked if there was what the use was gonna be for the old Selectman's building there. If you have, future plans for that. Because if you don't, we can use it temporarily or
Kind of move
whatever.
from one
We're gonna
old
need a
building
place-
to another old
We're gonna
building.
need another place to go. So,
How come $1 million to renovate? We have a parish house that needs a home.
Nice.
What's that?
We have a parish house that doesn't have any future plans, so you just have to renovate it.
For the state of
Nice
New
try,
Hampshire.
Katrin.
I always try. There could be $1 million someone wants to.
Maybe.
Yeah, this is completely unbudget related, but because she's going to do the minutes and watch the tape, I have to say that Denise Duval, the person in the front office at the selectman's office, is the assistant town administrator, not the receptionist.
Okay. I don't know.
She'll come over and kick me if I don't say
All
it.
right.
Noted, thank you, Andy.
Nice job, Andy.
I like that, please. I've been corrected.
I've been sitting here debating, should I say anything or not?
And then he's
That's
done.
okay.
We'll see Mr. Heber for a
I
while, I'm gonna see Denise
Now we
tomorrow.
know why you've been married so long.
She watches all the video.
All right.
Thank you very much.
So if you know of any place, or even, not even in town, but anywhere that we might find some space.
Yeah, definitely, thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Hebert?
Think so?
No?
Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you very much for
All right.
presenting to us
Thanks
this
a lot.
evening. Hello, may I ask what organizations you represent?
AIDS Response Seekers.
Okay,
I'm from Stratford Nutrition, Meals on Wheels.
okay, wonderful. So I think that AIDS Response Seacoast is first on our agenda. So if you wouldn't mind joining us.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Tamara Leibowitz. I'm the Executive Director, Program Manager, Case Manager, Janitor, AIDS Response Seekers.
Wear a
Four
show.
folks everything, so I wear every hat.
Lots of hats.
Yes. So AIDS Response Seekers, or ARS, we're a nonprofit community-based service organization. We're based out of Portsmouth, but we cover all of Rockingham and Stratford counties, all communities in all those counties. We're dedicated to providing education, direct assistance, and advocacy to persons and communities affected by HIV infection. We provide direct services to clients at all stages of HIV infection. We also provide educational programs throughout the seacoast of New England. We evolved as a grassroots response back in the 80s to the AIDS epidemic, and we have been offering services since 1987. We are the only AIDS service organization that covers either of these two counties and that provides these services in Rockingham and Stratford County. And all services from ARS are offered free of charge to all people living with HIV, and as well as our educational programs as well. So in Lee, we serve 2 to 5 Lee residents. We don't give exact numbers because of HIPAA regulations in these very small communities. We assist persons with HIV with enrollment and access to Medicaid, Medicare, private insurance. We also provide access to medications, including co-pays and deductible payments. HIV medications can cost $3,000 to $6,000 a month, and our clients don't pay a single penny for or for any of their medications. We're able to enroll clients in a program. The only way to access this DHHS program, it's called New Hampshire Care Program, is with case management services, and we enrolled in a program that pays for insurance payments, co-pays, all kinds of supports, because we find that's how people have best outcomes. And we try to get people to a state called undetectable, which means if you're taking medications, you cannot find traces of HIV in blood tests. You still have it, but it's suppressed and you can no longer pass it on to others. And so it makes them safer and have a higher quality of life, and makes our communities in general safer because they're not transmitting to other people in our communities. In addition to assistance with medication and insurance, we offer assistance with other programs such as applying for fuel assistance, housing programs. We provide medical transportation. We provide direct assistance for people, emergency assistance for rent and utilities. Last year, we gave 9 assists to help people remain housed or keep their utilities on.
Is that 9 for Lee residents specifically, or just generally?
Yeah, 9 in this area.
Okay.
Yeah. Assistance is often rapid. We also provide food. So a lot of times, we have a really quick turnaround. We'll have someone say, I have a shut-off notice. So it kind of keeps them out of the town welfare office so that we're able to do that assist. We have money dedicated for those causes. We have a food pantry, and we'll do food deliveries. We'll also send out food cards. So we provide ongoing intensive case management support. So even though our numbers are not really high, we have a lot of folks with really high needs, and so we kind of provide wraparound services for them. And like all nonprofits, ARS struggles to maintain services amongst rising costs and declining support from federal and state government. We rely on municipal funding to help support the programs we provide, and we've always looked upon the Seacoast communities and the town of Lee as our partners, and we're so grateful for the support that Lee has shown us and our clients through the years, and we appreciate your consideration during this budget process once again. Do you have any questions for me?
Could you tell us more about the educational outreach that your organization does?
Yeah, it's pretty much on request. We work a lot with school districts as they request it. So we'll do kind of an HIV 101. And we also have a few volunteers from our Speakers Bureau, which are people with lived experience who will go and talk to, we've gone to school groups, to church groups, things like that, and just kind of try to help reduce stigma and also reduce risk and better understanding so that HIV doesn't spread in our communities.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
joining us
you for the
today.
opportunity.
Yeah, nice to see you again.
You too, thank you. And Meals on Wheels? Are you Jamie?
Yes, I am Jamie.
Nice to meet you, Jamie. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yes.
I
Just a
recognize a
few
few
times.
faces.
Just a few times.
For those who haven't met me before, though, I'm Jamie Shagnon, I'm the Executive Director of Stratford Nutrition and Meals on Wheels. We cover all the Meals on Wheels programs for Stratford County. And last year, thankfully, partly to your kindness, with the $1,500 donation, or grant, whatever term you prefer, we were able to serve 24 elderly residents with about 2,500 meals and 1,300 what we call safety checks. What safety checks involve is when our drivers go out, they're trained to observe and notice if there's slight modifications in people's behavior. Maybe they're not dressed like they usually are, maybe they just don't seem coherent, whatever, so we can take preemptive actions. So Meals on Wheels tries to keep them healthy, both mentally and physically in their homes and stuff. Overall, I could preach to the choir here because I'm sure we're all human beings, we all live. Costs for food, supplies, packaging, trying to maintain staff has gone through the roof, and it's been crazy. I think I told you guys last year that last year and this year we had been fortunate enough to get some ARPA funding, so that kept us kind of stable. I remember you guys are, very supportive of our challenges and stuff like that. This year, I'm waiting to hear, because as the chairman of the Meals on Wheels New Hampshire group, I did a lot of advocating, a lot of speaking in front of legislators and stuff like that. And we did get more money to come into the state, but I don't know what's gonna come to our county yet. I'm hoping it's gonna fill the void that the ARPA is gonna leave us at the end of June, but I don't know yet. So I'm, here asking for level funding again. I hope that I'm gonna fill all my voids and can keep serving people the way we have. We did have overall as an agency, a 16% increase, which was kind of funny, in meals, and about an 18% in the cost differences. So it was kind of like jumped in both areas on this, which was a little shocking, but like I said, ARPA thus far has helped us deal with that. I'd love to address any questions, or anyone who doesn't understand more about our program that would like me to explain more. Other than that, I thank you for being supportive of us. And I also want to add, in case no one has, I thank you for the way you structure this. Because a lot of the town meetings, it takes a lot of effort on your part. It's just go when you wait until it's your turn. You can be there hours. And I appreciate your consideration to give us a block of time. It makes it a little easier in our lives. So thank you.
Thank you to us getting volunteers.
We're still, we do all kinds of, from whether it's advertising on our webs, putting posters up places, reaching out to groups and stuff like that. I find it more challenging. For those of you who haven't said this too, I've been doing this since 1988. So I'm starting, to show my years, I think. But the world has changed, and it's harder to find volunteers. It's like, for many years, our staple group of drivers, because in order to get that consistency with the evaluations and the training, we pay our staff. We don't deal with volunteer staff. Volunteers help with packaging, cleanup, and things like that. But our pool of volunteers used to be greatly retirees, moms that were just looking to get a little income. But that doesn't seem to be a possibility, because I think so many families have two incomes already, they need it, right? Retirees either, maybe they're not retiring as young or whatever, so it's a little more challenging to get staff in general, never mind the competition. Like when McDonald's is paying $15 an hour down the street, that's a little tough for me. So, was that kind of addressed?
Yes, it does.
So.
How many did you say you were providing for in Lee?
24 this past year, yeah.
That's about the same, or is it?
Yeah, it fluctuated, I think, a couple people. With our program, you can have people on that are, let's say, an 89-year-old that's on long-term, or you could have someone that maybe is in their 70s and had surgery and just needs help for a while.
Yeah.
So it can drastically change in some areas from year to year, and other years it kind of stays a little the same. So yeah, I think we've been running between, I want to say the lowest I remember was maybe 22 and the highest maybe 25 with you guys. It's kind of staying in that area.
Yeah.
So.
I thought it was about the same.
Yeah. It actually, again, from my years of doing this, I used to be with Rockingham before I came to take over Stratford, and I was always amazed that every year, no matter how many people we added on, which was a lot, in the end of the year, we always still ended up with like 1,300 as a base. I'm like, all that work, and it's still getting down to about that same number every year. I don't know why, but.
They stop,
Yeah.
they pass away.
It's a lot of work for my team, and actually this is not relevant, but it's kind of how our world can be. We literally had went out to see a gentleman the other day. His family wanted to get him on the program. We got there, his daughter was there. She says, never mind, he refuses, he won't take it. We came back, we shredded the intake process we had done thus far, because it's confidential, you can't keep it and all that stuff. It's not an active client. Only to have the daughter call us today and say, well, we've got him convinced to do 2 days. When can you come back? I'm like, okay. So there's a lot of that, ups and downs all the time,
Yeah.
But, so, other questions, or?
On your application, it was mentioned that you have 3 dining facilities, and so people can also dine on site with you. Could you describe that a bit to us?
Sure, we have a location actually in Dover, in Rochester, and in Somersworth, where anybody, based off the Older American Act rules, anybody 60 and older is welcome to come in and have a meal. The only challenge I do have a little bit with them, they're all in housing authority buildings, so the parking's limited. And so it's a little less welcoming than I'd like for people to come in. It'd be nice if we were all in senior centers or something, but I haven't just been able to get that to transition. They all have their own things in the senior centers, like in Dover and Rochester and stuff. So I haven't been able to break that ceiling, so to speak, to get in there. But yes, it's still technically open to the public, and we tried to advertise it as much as possible. We have that on our websites and different flyers and whatever else, and we have clients that come to us that aren't eligible for the homebound program. They don't meet the criteria. We make referrals to them to go to those centers if they're eligible for that. Because sometimes you have somebody that even could be 70 years old, but they're still mobile enough and stuff. They don't meet the specs, so, but you still want to try to help them because maybe it's a husband who lost his wife and can't cook, and never learned to cook or something like that. So you want to be nutritionally.
So are those centers still 60 and over only?
Yes, they have to be 16 older, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So, good questions, guys. Things I don't get to talk
In a
about.
couple of years, then I can go, right?
Yeah. Well, sometimes, like I said, I get, because I've been doing it so long, sometimes I forget what people don't know, so I need to be reminded what I need to
Right.
educate people on. It just feels like I've been talking about it for a long time.
But I didn't know if, like, it is 60 and over.
Yes.
But Dover, I mean, there must be quite a few people in Dover that are each of those towns that.
Yes, we get a decent percentage. You know, like Dover's probably averaging, I think we're up to about 25 people a day coming in there to eat and stuff like that. So, yeah, we get some people in there, but not as much as I would like if it was in a senior center. I think you possibly could get more. And I'm gonna keep plugging at that, but, you know.
But it is the 60 and over, and it's not just like homeless or whatever.
No, unfortunately,
It's
no,
like,
that
yeah.
rule isn't, and that funding pot doesn't help pay for
Right.
that. We do have right now with the state, and I don't know if it's gonna stay, they started it with the COVID and all that kind of stuff going on, an option for grab and go, which is still supposed to be over 60, but it could be someone 60 that's homeless, you know, and stuff like that, could come by and pick up a meal. So they're not necessarily forced to stay at the center, but we also can't deliver to them because they don't have a home, you know, so.
Right.
So we do have some other options. I definitely would never discourage anyone from being, you know, this homeless that you guys know of, bringing them to our attention. We still might be able to do something. We do have, like in Rochester, we have some people that are technically homeless and the welfare's put them up maybe in hotels, and so we go to the hotels to deliver to them. So that we can help compensate for what they're trying to do through their welfare with what we can do.
Mm.
I have one last question.
Sure.
So you mentioned
I know,
that,
right?
you mentioned that you're looking, like when staff go to deliver a meal, they also are looking for like signs that there could be some sort of like distress or change.
Yeah.
So in the event that there is something that you notice, like what other support services do you provide, or do you refer them to other organizations?
First stop is always, like, when we see it, we reach to whoever's their contact on the intake. It could be a caseworker, it could be a family member. We reach out to them and say, okay, unless it's an emergency situation.
Right,
Like if they're seeming disoriented, no, 911, we're going right there. But if it just seems like we're seeing some subtle changes, maybe they seem depressed, maybe they seem not quite, you know, well, not necessarily sickly, but not quite, that would usually be the first step, is contacting that person and discussing with them options. If it's somebody local, often they'll step in right away. And we've had like one person this year thanked us because 3 times we caught a stroke before it was happening because the person wasn't quite acting right. The family went over there and they took them right to the hospital, and, you know, so it depends on the severity of what we're seeing, whether we're calling 911 or working with them. That's generally what we start with. After that, depending what happens, like if it's a family member that lives in California, we'll work more with them on trying to find some other services, maybe getting them a state caseworker, whatever, depends on the scenario, you know what I mean? It's something we try not to walk away from until we know someone else has picked up that ball.
Got it.
You know.
Thank you.
And make people aware.
Yeah.
But your people do other things like bring the mail in for people and bring the paper, and I've seen them do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, they do that, but we try to, in all honesty, talk about what's acceptable.
Yeah.
Like, I won't lie to you, occasionally I have drivers that make mistakes. I had a driver a couple of years back that the client was complaining about their bush and how it was on the way to the walking path. So the driver went back and trimmed the bush, but what the driver didn't know was the client didn't own the home. The client was staying in the home.
Oh.
So we try to talk about correct boundaries of what you do and what you
To
don't
check
do.
before you do something.
Yes.
Right.
So
Well, that was very helpful.
we tried, simple things like take the trash out to the curb for them, okay, We know you're not gonna get in trouble for that one. But so every now and then they try it. We had another case, actually, now I'm thinking about where the person needed a haircut. It was during COVID. And so she went into, with a friend of hers was a haircut person, and that was like a big no-no because she took someone in that wasn't clear. And so that person, unfortunately, I could not keep because they violated our protocols. But, so occasionally things don't go as I try to train and teach, but we correct it and we make sure it goes right for the next time.
All right, any other questions for Jamie?
No, it's great. Thank you.
All right.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time, appreciate your consideration.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us today. Hello, I saw 2 new faces join us. May I ask what organization you're with?
I'm with CASA.
Okay, and
Community Action.
Community Action, okay. Community
CIP,
Action is
CIP.
first. Would you mind joining us?
Good evening.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Beth Sanders Parker, and I'm the CEO of Community Action, and thank you for having us here tonight. What we're just passing around is, I know you had a service funding request, but we have also our annual report and our Thanksgiving food basket program, which signups are currently happening. We just talked about food and the need for food and food insecurity, and this is just one thing that we had in here. It's a really big program. We are actually combining with 4 nonprofits and some businesses in the county to do a very large scale distribution. And it's open to anyone in Trafford County, so we wanted to make sure that as people reach out to you about questions or things happening on many other programs, this is a good one. Cool. So, how may I answer your questions?
So you are requesting $4,000 from us this year, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and that's an increase since last year, so perhaps if you could tell us a little bit about,
Last year's worth it.
I think last year's
Oh, was it?
Yeah, the previous year, it has been increased, and we are greatly appreciative of the increase and the support of it. The one misnomer people have about community action is, well, you have a lot of money. And you may have seen, and it comes up, and we actually did, I mean, thanks to that, we had a huge, significant increase in our ability to help residents. You can see, just for the town of Lee, 109% increase. I mean, it really was incredible with the rental assistance program. But I'm sure as your welfare director, human resource director could attest to, is that once that money ended, that the need still remained. I mean, the cost of milk alone, and gas, and I can go on and on. You've heard it, I'm sure, from other agencies. It has meant that our funding, which is federal funding, we have to raise over $1.2 million every year to match the funding that comes along with that. So if we're doing, for example, just talk about rental assistance, which most of people come often to welfare and say, I can't afford my security deposit, or I can move here, but I can only do the first months or whatever. So we work with them. So we have a thing called rapid rehousing, and that rapid rehousing program helps people, except we have to raise 25% of that $800,000. So we look at the municipal support. This is what's called a match. It's not federal match, so when you give this, you are helping us leverage all the other programs that we have. So it's so incredibly important. It's a misnomer. People say, you got the money, they don't need it. Quite opposite. We really do need that support, and it also gives us flexibility. So for fuel assistance, for example, doesn't open up until December 1st. I can't control that. And oftentimes, people are really in need, and sometimes maybe the welfare office isn't open. I mean, it happens, someone's out. So we have the ability with flexible funds to be able to help get 100 gallons, or come check that the light isn't on and do a weatherization. So really, this funding helps us leverage and do lots for the community. And I talk about welfare because really that is our prime contact and our partner with this. We got to know all the welfare directors really well over the course of rental assistance. And I'm sure, I haven't seen what your line item is, but it was probably almost zero or very, very low during rental assistance, and I'm sure it's creeping back up there. So we have formed a great partnership with all of our welfare administrators.
Have you guys recovered since that whole thing with, I actually had 2 separate families that were involved with the whole ending, sudden ending of the.
That was painful.
Of the program, and it was super painful
Yeah.
for landlords, for the people that were being helped, everything else, so.
Absolutely.
Has that all kind of
So
leveled out now, or?
So what he's referring to is that one day we were taking applications, and the next day at 5 o'clock we were not. There, I mean, when I say the rug was pulled out.
They totally ended it like without any warning. I know it wasn't you,
No,
I know, but I was like.
Oh, trust us, and if you had not had your application in, and like there were these things where like, look, the application came in at 2 o'clock in the morning, they're like, our hard cutoff was 11:59. I mean, how we recovered, in the sense of, yes, we've recovered, that we tried to bridge the gap for many people. We couldn't go back, but there were things that we have been able to do, like rapid rehousing, again, like municipal funding. People don't realize that I see a lot of discussion about like sheltering. Well, we actually housed over 500 people in hotels when they lost their residences. You name the hotel, we had people in there, and we were the largest provider of hoteling services for people to maintain.
They kept that going for a little bit.
They kept it going to April 1st for
Yeah.
singles, and then June 26th or 16th for families. But I think what was really important about this, and what's important about what we do at Community Action, is that, first of all, if I had 500 households, I would be a unicorn, and we don't have them. But we were able to actually move people into who were really ready for housing. And so we mean by ready for housing, we mean, look, if you can survive in a hotel room with 2 beds, a microwave, a mini fridge, and 2 kids, 1 bathroom, and you've done that for 18 months, we're like, you are ready for housing. So we stabilize and help move people. Like, that's what, but we just didn't move enough people to make some people happy. So we have great relationships with landlords. Not everything was perfect, but I look at that and the number of people who were housed. I'm so sorry that you had people who were impacted. It was jarring. It was jarring.
It was a tough period of time.
Yeah, it really was. It's I don't think people understand how hard it is to find a place to live until you've tried to find a place to live.
Right.
Or tried to maintain it. It's been very challenging for a lot of people. It's already been a challenge.
We raced to try and find other, agencies that could actually help with, the rental assistance and so forth.
And it only goes so far. I mean, we moved one family 3 times. Like 3 times when the landlords kept upping the rent and different things, we were just like, all right, we're gonna move. I mean, and that fortunately, we were lucky because not a lot of people actually needed a 3-bedroom. So if you needed a 2-bedroom or one, you were hard to find. But a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, we were able, for some reason, we had some flexibility. So at some point, we're like, do you want to live together? Because if you move in together, this may help you find a place to live. I mean, we're really trying to be very creative with what we were doing.
Yeah.
So it was hard.
And you did a good job.
Thank you very much. It was, I think I'm so incredibly proud of our team that is here, and again, our partners, I can't talk about our partners enough, that flex with this. I mean, overall, it was $44 million of assistance. And so if you talk about an organization that flexed, we flexed, like really flexed and brought that in, and just the sheer volume and the number of people. But from that, we have 949 landlords now in Stratford County that we have relationships with. We had just over 200 before this started. Wow. That is an incredible, and we've maintained, so there are good things that came out of COVID. I hate to say that. There are good things that came out of COVID. So.
Betsy, what do you see for the next year?
What I see for
big
the
challenges for the next year?
the government shutting down on the 17th. I mean, so 80% of our funding, you'll see in the annual report, is based off of federal funding. And so we spent a lot of time discussing with our staff, like what will happen. So I have 25 staff that are directly impacted when the government shuts down, that they will not have a job. So I will have to fund those 25 staff people in between. That we, right now, the things that always were funded, so fuel assistance, it's a big one. I'm wearing this vest because it's cold out now, I forgot how cold it was. Normally, that is an emergency funding and appropriation through a CR, and they immediately do that because it's recognized across all party lines, it's important. They are proposing and they're not budgeting from a 70% cut in fuel assistance. So for us in Stratford County, we have $3 million that comes in, so 70% of that would be cut. So that is a struggle. And so with that, I remember
Going into winter.
Going into winter, absolutely. It's my birthday, so my birthday, I'm looking forward to a government shutdown. But I remember sitting in my lobby trying to help some folks in the steady stream of people that were coming through because they feared they weren't gonna get it. So the government shutdown really is a real thing because it scares people, it scares staff. The cost of food is escalating. And I appreciate having an assigned time, but I also love listening to my partners and hearing. I love the fact that seniors can sit with their meals, but this year they did away with that for kids. Instead of, we used to be able to like grab and go and take it back, now you have to do congregate eating. So we saw a significant drop in our foods. We know that kids aren't eating. So that's another real concern for us. We know that people are making choices around childcare, that they can't afford childcare. If I have 4 more teachers, I will be fully open and I will alleviate a wait list I'll have of 50 kids who are on a wait list. So we continue to find that. We have done a lot with wages, to increase wages. I have 3 kids who work, so I'm very aware what Target, Home Depot, and the hospital pays, so to be competitive. So, I mean, those are the same challenges people are feeling, but with this upcoming whatever's gonna happen with the CR or a budget, it really is gonna impact our programs. And unfortunately, I'm gonna have to say to someone, you need to go see your local community. Like, you know, I don't have the money. But I think with that too, I just wanna stress too about this partnership is we call and say, what can you do? What can we do? Where does your funding say? What can we do? And the other frustration that comes up is you've got a program where it says we can enroll you in this, but only 30% of your income can go to your rent. And if you do that, you can be in this program that gradually decreases you off of rental assistance. Name one apartment out there that someone can afford making $47,000 a year, where only 37% of their income comes. So those are the continued challenges. You've got this money you can't spend. So. And board members, I need some new board members. I have 1 here, but I could use some more.
Any questions?
I have a question. About how many like full-time staff do you have versus the number of volunteers?
Volunteers, so we put out, like full-time, like FTEs, including like what we consider part-time, however between 130 and 147, depending on the time of year.
Okay.
And then for volunteers, we probably have, I would say, a good 300 volunteers that come in at various times. Some of them are one-offs, some come to do the food pantry all the time. There is a sign-up genius for the Thanksgiving food program if you want to hang out turkeys. That job's outside, I'll tell you that, or direct traffic. Yeah, there's that as well. So we really look for some opportunities. Another great opportunity we have is like with the town of Barrington for commodity food. The food pantries and soup kitchens in this area use it. And we pull 2 18-wheelers through, so volunteers unload pallets and pallets of food off of that, also outside in a barn. So if you want to, it's so attractive, isn't it? I can make anything.
Maybe just play some fun music.
By the end of it, you really hate cans of peas.
Oh,
like those bags of walnuts, frozen food that comes through. So it just depends. So we have on our site, stratfordcat.org, there's volunteer opportunities. So for example, on Monday, we have a group that's coming in to wash and like detail our company vehicles. I know that doesn't sound exciting. However, people love it. They do play music. We get them pizza, and those vehicles shine. And it saves us, a lot of money having folks. I mean, we run through the car wash, but they really like come through in detail. So if you have a need or an interest, we have holiday meals coming up with our Head Start kids in 3 different locations, and so we'll serve about 1,000 meals to families, and so you can scoop mashed potatoes and all the things. It's great, so if you have an interest in volunteering, we will take you on. It'd be great.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yay. Any other questions?
All good.
Thank you. My card is in here if you have any questions or anything.
I wanna volunteer.
We will have an annual meeting in May. We'd love to have you all there as well, celebrate our successes. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions or family needs some help, my information's right there, so give me a reach out. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And you said CASA, right?
Yes, I
Okay.
know I'm early, but
That,
That's
I think
awesome.
that
We'll take early.
we're ready for you, so thank you very much for your patience.
no problem. Sorry for my coughing fit when I came in.
Oh,
We didn't even notice.
We've all been here.
So once the kids went back to school, everything started up again.
Yep.
So I do have a few things to share. Hot off the press is our annual report, so I can
Oh, boy.
pass a couple of those around along with the packet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
This is one.
So in the packet is just some information about CASA, our greeting card program where we work with local New Hampshire artists to make those greeting cards, and then a company will print them for us.
It's very cool.
And the proceeds go to CASA, so you can, buy your Christmas cards and donate to CASA at the same time. Again, I'm with CASA. My name is Tara. I work in development. I've been with CASA for almost 3 years now. And I appreciate everyone's kindness that I was getting myself going the first couple of years. We're asking for $1,000 from the town of Lee, consistent with what we've been receiving for the past few years, so I really appreciate that. Last year was tough, to say it nicely. To put it in a little bit of perspective, fiscal year '22, which was July of '21 to June of '22, CASA had to refuse 93 cases. Or I'm sorry, 93 children. And when that happens, they don't have that dedicated volunteer by their side. Fiscal year '23, the first 3 months of fiscal year '23, we refused 93 children.
Wow.
We refused 277 for the whole year because that anticipated increase finally came, unfortunately. So all of the funding that we get from these towns and municipalities really, really helps get those advocates where they're needed. We don't want to say no to kids, because they still have that advocate in court. They will get a paid guardian ad litem provided by the state. However, the guardians don't have the bandwidth that our volunteers do. So they will meet with the kid once, maybe twice a year, whereas our advocates meet with them monthly. They really get the best interest for the kid by doing that, building that relationship, figuring out what's in their best interest. Maybe, the kids always want to go home to their parents, and that's always what we try to work for. But if the parents aren't doing what they need to do, the advocate has to, work with the kids to say, maybe it's best that you don't. And so it's always a hard decision. The kids want to go home, we want them to go home, but the advocate really is speaking for their best interest at the end of the day, and they understand that too. We did have 8 children from the town of Lee last year. Right now, we currently have 5. So, a few months into the year, we'll probably see that number go up by this time next year when I'm back here in front of you again. Are there any questions about what?
I had a question about that actually. So do you try to pair local children with local advocates when at all possible?
So yes and no. What will happen is DCYF will, the case will be presented to CASA once a finding has been of abuse and neglect. And then the program manager in that area So say it's, somewhere around Lee, we'll go to any of their CASAs that are available. And what we've been finding is a lot of CASAs don't want cases in their town. Because they're gonna run into someone that they know.
I see, okay.
They're gonna be noticed in the supermarket. So an advocate who lives in Lee might take a case in Rochester or
Okay.
Dover or somewhere like that. But a Dover resident is helping our kids in Lee.
Got it.
So everyone's kind of all over the place. If they have to, they will. The advocates go where they're needed. And they know if there's no one taking a case in the town that they live in, they're not gonna refuse it on that principle. But we are finding that a lot of our advocates prefer to not take one in their town just for confidentiality purposes. It's
I see.
easier that way.
Okay, yeah, I hadn't considered that, but that makes sense now that you explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could be uncomfortable if they know the family or
Exactly.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if your kids go to the same school as them, it's hard to keep that distance and not break anything.
When you see them, you want to give them your undivided attention, so if you see them in the grocery store and you know something else, it's also not a great.
Yeah, and then, if they, the kids run up to you because they see you and they know you, and they go, oh, how do you know? And then there's a lot of awkward questions.
Yeah.
Is there like an average for how long the kids are with advocates?
So the usual, if a case is textbook, it lasts a year. The parents typically have a year to either go through treatment, get housing, whatever it is that the reasons why the kids were removed from them. They typically have a year in a textbook case, quote unquote. However, a lot of the cases recently are extremely severe and they're taking longer. We had one advocate whose case just hit 5 years. This was, of course, before the pandemic happened, so, and this was up in Coos County where unfortunately drugs are a big feature up there, so the cases are taking quite a while. The ones that we've been receiving recently since this influx has been starting, they are very severe, and we're anticipating them to go past that year that they're scheduled to take. And it all depends on if the families are, maybe they need more time, they had a setback in rehab or something like that, or their housing fell through, or any sorts of reasonings. Anyone can petition the court to make the case go longer if they think it's justified.
Are these all kids that have been removed from the home?
Most of them have been removed from the home, yes. There is a very few number of cases where the kids are still with their parents, but maybe one of the parents has been removed.
So who are the kids with? This is a foster
A lot
family?
of them
or-
go into foster or residential care, or relative placement, if there's a relative close by who can support them.
So it actually wouldn't be typically the parent that you're in the town of the
No.
parent, it would be just the child.
Yeah, coming to the child. The advocates do, however, get updates on the parents. They do meet with the parents to see how they're doing, if they're following their treatment plan, if they're going to their meetings or whatever it is they need to do. The advocates meet with everyone in a kid's life. And that includes the parents, the teachers, the doctors. They're a full party to everything, so they get all of that information. So yes, it's very likely that they may see the parent of, even if, a kid is living in Rochester in foster care, but the parent is here in Lee, they might see them in the grocery store. And there's that awkward.
So you could,
Yeah.
could actually know you and
Yeah.
so forth.
Yeah, there's always that chance, which is why a lot of our advocates, again, just prefer to go outside of the town, but they do it all over the state. So, Rochester advocates come here, Lee advocates might go anywhere that they're needed. But some of them don't mind. They can keep that professional relationship.
I guess it depends on, how the relationship is. Like,
Yeah,
I would be more worried about the parent if, there could be some frustration and anger and so forth, and if they saw, say, for example, I was an advocate for someone in Lee, and the parent was in Lee, then
Yeah.
they
And
know
there
where I
is-
live, you know,
In
that
the,
kind
in
of
the
thing.
beginning, the parents are usually very upset about everything. Their kids have been taken away from them,
Right.
they're angry at everybody, so keeping that separation, the advocates prefer to do that. But again, it's up to the advocate if they want to take a case with the town they live in. They don't mind seeing them at the grocery store or at the gas station or something like that, you know. A lot of them, especially the ones that have been with CASA for a while, can keep that distance. We've had 2 advocates this year actually that are reaching their 30-year volunteer mark.
It's amazing.
And CASA's been around for 34 years, so it's
Yeah.
saying quite a bit.
But you could have a situation where the parent, say, lives in Dover or Rochester or whatever, and the child is being fostered in Lee.
Yeah.
In that case, I wouldn't see a problem with it.
Case
but
by
I don't
case
know.
basis.
Yeah.
I'm sure they work with you
Right.
on whatever it is.
All different situations.
Yeah, you know, the kids are placed in foster care with whatever is best suited for them, whatever meets their needs. If they have medical needs, they're placed in different places, different facilities if
All,
they
yeah,
have
they're
to.
all different, yeah.
And the advocates are going all over the state if they have to meet with, if the kids, you know, parents are in Lee, but the kids up in, you know, Rochester, Wakefield, even the kids in Wolfboro. So the advocate is going all over the state to meet with whoever they need to make that best recommendation for the kid.
I'm guessing you need volunteers.
Desperately.
Got it.
Desperately, yeah. Right now, we have a little over 600 volunteers. We estimate that in order to reach, in order to take 100% of the cases that CASA is given, we need at least 800.
Wow.
And 65% are over 60.
Yeah.
A lot of our volunteers are either working part-time or they've retired and they want something to do. The commitment's about 10 to 15 hours a month.
That's what I was wondering, yeah.
Yeah, so 10 to 15 hours a month. It fluctuates depending on what kind of court, where you're at in the court case. Maybe you have a couple of, you know, maybe you're going to court that month and you're getting your stuff ready, so it might take you a few extra hours. If it's not a court month and you're just meeting with the kids, it's a little less, but it's, you know, it's 10 to 15 is the average time commitment per month. The advocates do go through 40 hours of legal training before they're given a case. It is very intense. I took it myself. I don't know how they do it. You know, it's very thorough, and the training is very comprehensive all around. We even have a couple of judges who come in and speak with the class to let them know their expectations of the CASA and, you know, what they look for in the court reports. So it's, once the CASAs do the training, they also get like a peer mentor for their first case to help them write the court reports, you know, what's expected of them in court, you know, how do you deal with parents who won't take your phone call, things like that.
Thank you for doing this work.
Yeah.
I'm happy to come to meetings like this and, you know, work with the towns and individuals because the advocates do a lot. They do, and they need the support.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about what other sources of funding that your organization receives beyond just municipal funding?
Yeah, so we do receive quite a bit of funding that's federal and state provided. Because the children are victims of crime, we receive VOCA funding, which comes through, it's federally funded, but it's, you know, it's funnels through the state of New Hampshire. We have several events. We have an event coming up in November that Seth Meyers is putting on a comedy show for CASA and the Granite State Children's Alliance. Tickets are still available. We have our gala every year that takes place in May. This past year, we raised over $500,000, which was our biggest yet.
Wow.
Yeah, we're setting our sights pretty high for next year. I can keep you in the loop if you'd like tickets for that.
That's not easy to have a gala that big. That's impressive.
No, it was, yeah, we
I'm amazed.
had some pretty surprising donations during our appeal moment, which was very nice. The greeting card program that we have brings in a little bit of funding, you know, CASA merchandise. And then just our appeal, we have 2 appeals throughout the year. Some businesses will host third-party fundraisers for us, you know. If you want to wear jeans on Friday, you pay $10 and then the company donates it to Costa, that sort of thing. We participate in the giving days that New Hampshire has, so New Hampshire Gives Day in June, Giving Tuesday in November. Costa participates in those, and they're a lot of fun. We get some different involvement, get some sponsors for those, and people have fun with that. So we try and diversify our funding so that, you know, if not all the towns and counties in New Hampshire give. So what we don't get from cities and towns, we supplement with local funding and fundraising and events and things like that.
Okay.
Oh, thank you so much.
I was looking around like, I already drank out of that.
That's a fresh cup.
That's good.
Incredible.
Any other questions about CASA?
So to learn more about volunteering
Yes.
and possibly becoming,
Yes.
is there just an online thing?
Yeah,
or-
so you can go to casanh.org. We host bi-weekly virtual info sessions. So there's Zooms, I think they're on Wednesday nights every couple of weeks. We have one. They're attended, you know, you're gonna have a staff member and an advocate on there who will talk about what it's like to be a CASA, what the training is like, what they do, how they interact with the kid, answer any questions you might have about being a CASA. So I would recommend starting there first with the info session. And then, you know, if you're interested in becoming a CASA after that, they tell you where you can go for the application. You can follow up with anyone from our recruitment office if you have questions from that point on. There might be a flyer in that packet about with the QR code for the virtual info sessions.
There's a lot of good stuff in there. Probably in there.
But the website will have casanh.org.
CASA.nh.org.
Yep, and it'll have a link right there to look at the virtual info session. You can sign up for anyone you want to. We have them booked through the rest of the year, and I think the beginning of next year also. So whatever date works best.
How many cases does a CASA have at any given time?
Typically, they'll take 2 cases.
Okay.
And
That's a volunteer?
a volunteer will
Yeah.
typically take 2 cases at a time. Right now, some of them are only taking 1 because of the severity. And I do want to point out that 1 case could have 1 kid, 1 case could have 6 kids. So the CASA is taking a case. No matter how many kids that case involves, it's 1 CASA per case. So you might be 1 CASA taking a case with 4 kids and they're all over the state. So you're going all over the state to meet with them. Sometimes they have to separate them depending on foster care or the needs of the kids. But it's per case. And so the advocates will take between 1 to 5 kids on average at a time, depending on how many they have there.
Do you have any Lee CASAs right now?
Yeah, we have 3 advocates who currently live in Lee, and I think, I did ask, we have a training that's going on right now. I think there's 1 in the current training.
Okay.
And it costs on average about $2,000 to put a CASA for a whole year, from recruitment to training to supporting. For the year, it costs about $2,000. So that's where part of your funding is going to support that new CASA that we're getting basically for this year.
Good to know. Well, I don't have any other questions. Anyone else? All right, well, thank you very much for coming today. We certainly appreciate your presentation.
Thank you for the
I think we're having a dry throat world in here.
All right, we're gonna have to talk to this electorate about that and see if we can do something.
Dry
Getting
air?
a little more moisture in this room now.
Yeah, right. We need a fire.
not expecting anybody else.
I don't think that we're expecting anyone else. I think that Waypoint, who was supposed to be here at 6 a.m. or 6 p.m., probably is not going to be joining us at this point. So I think that we can.
Can I say something too that's just important for everyone to know in
Yeah.
nonprofits, as I've been joining the nonprofit world? One of the hardest things to do is to get funding for administrative fees. Nobody wants to do that. So you can get grants, administrative fees. So when you have, grants, they want to have the money go to the program and all that stuff. And if you put anything in there, even like 10%, that's just amazing. So the money that we donate really, really helps for just keeping,
The lights on?
basics. Yeah, literally, yeah. So just
Okay.
important.
All right, Mr. Tappan.
We won't chase you out this one.
Thank you for sitting through all of that tonight.
I know, yeah, that was excellent.
Almost, you're feeling it, I'm sorry.
Well, Tom, you can't volunteer for every organization.
No, seriously. If we took out your
I
question.
have been thinking about CASA for a long time, but
We
we'll
should
see.
definitely-
I don't know. It sounds like it's a lot
Just do
of
it.
work, I know.
Just do it.
And the,
Everything's a lot of work.
The raid rides, not a big deal because
You could drive
I
that.
had
person's car.
a home care business
Hopefully
for
that- is that
18
small
years,
enough?
so
Oh, perfect.
I was bringing people everywhere. I know how to, so.
Yeah, we need to get you volunteer.
Hey, Andy, I think that maybe one thing that we could do, like with this budget, I think a lot of members of the community probably don't know that we give to these social services organizations. So maybe it would be a good idea to just kind of say like, okay, in an e-crier, your ABC has just received funding requests from all these organizations, and this is what they do, this is the services available to leave residents, maybe just to like blast it in terms of a communication out there.
We certainly can, and we will do that prior to the deliberative session too, as we just sort of call attention to the budget, and we can put more emphasis on it in the PowerPoint presentation that we give at deliberative as well.
Okay, yeah, I mean, even just
I would
outside of
think
budgeting.
that would be a positive response from all the community. No,
It's
won't
not always.
It
I
won't
understand.
necessarily.
Yeah.
Some people will be like, I'm not putting my money
Yeah.
into,
The other thing that is a common thread with every single person that came is that they're all desperate volunteers, and I have just been saying for so
Right.
long, we need a volunteer coordinator, somebody could just say, who's out there, what do you wanna do, how many hours do you have?
Yeah.
Somebody could just really,
Another committee.
well, I'm
It's
not
also,
starting.
it's also on the same budget page, but if you listen to what these social service agencies say they're putting into the community and then look at what's coming out of our general assistance budget, we
Yeah.
spend virtually nothing on welfare in the town of
Yeah.
Lee,
Which
which
is
is
something
not the
we need
case
to
in
talk
every
about.
town around us.
No,
Yeah.
because we have all these groups that we
Yeah.
support.
I'm wondering, maybe, I've never met our welfare coordinator, but maybe she could like put a blurb in the e-crier about, like her budget request and talk about all the support that she finds for members of the community.
And I'll be presenting her budget when I do the select board's budget, but we contract with an individual who serves a number of towns.
Right.
And
That's what I
sort
was
of
wondering.
parcels and portions out, charges between the towns.
Yeah.
She's actually the deputy welfare officer in Portsmouth.
She's full-time there, and then she's part-time here and part-time somewhere else.
She's
and-
full-time there and part-time there, and I've been to her office to visit her and go over things, and quite frankly was amazed that she represents, I believe, 7 or 8 towns and does it all from her Portsmouth office, where she's a full-time employee with
Wow.
no one seems to
She
mind.
sounds amazing. All right, Mr. Tappan, we are adjourning at 8 p.m. today, so if you could just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Look at your shoulder setting.
Thank you for coming.
We will, of course, welcome you to another meeting if we need to, have more time together.
So I think this is really up to you as to what you want to see. I don't know how much of what you know about the FPT, about what it does, or what it can do. I was expecting that I would just go through a brief introduction of what it does, what are the pieces, show you some of the inputs that we have on for some of the funds, and As you can see, there are many, many tabs to this thing, so I certainly didn't think that we're gonna go through it all.
Not right now.
Or not even
Yeah.
close.
But just to understand how it works.
So what we're looking at right now is version 0.04. It starts with 0, it's a draft version. On this page, you note what are the most recent updates, and the most recent update here was yesterday, where updated entries for the library building and the library capital reserve fund, added a funding source code, LF, for the library foundation, and library costs are now included in the building summary sheet. There's a tab for each of the capital reserve funds or trust funds. This is primarily oriented toward calculating how much should be appropriated to each of those funds in order to meet whatever line items have been entered and have been determined to come from that fund. And each year you start out with, right now we're in fiscal year 2024, and we're planning for future 2025 and beyond. It's a 20-year plan, which is primarily based on the fire apparatus, which gets replaced every 20 years. Down here, there's you can enter a future date that's beyond that. So just as part of data validation, with an input of 30 years, you can enter anything that's going to happen up to 2055. Each year, it accounts for the interest that's going to be earned on the funds, as well as the escalation of costs. 4.5% is my estimate for the current year. We started this year at a little over 4%. We're now over 4.8%. So this is my guesstimate of what the effective rate would be by the time we close the year. And I am not willing to make great predictions about what it will be in the future, so I've got 3% in there. I've watched how good the Federal Open Market Committee is at predicting what interest rates will be.
Yeah, that's great.
And so I have 3%. And I thought that I'd start with it. Rather than starting with town buildings, I'd start with one of the simple ones that shows what this does. So, revaluation fund. Is this print large enough for you to read? Because I can enlarge this.
It's a sharp group. Good eyes.
Mm-hmm.
No? You want to come sit here?
Yeah, maybe I should.
No, just, this one I can make bigger because it's
Look at that.
on it.
That's perfect.
So, there's a worksheet like this for every fund. This one is simple because you don't do revaluations very often. So there's 4 entries planned to be done in 2027, 2032, etc. The estimated cost is $50,000, and that's an estimate from 2022. There's estimate type. This was something that a select board member asked for. How do we know how good these estimates are? So this is really a grading of A through E, and it starts out with just an example. So A is like competitive bid, B is market research, C is professional estimate, D is educated guess, and then E is just a plain guess. And in some cases, there's a link to the basis for that. Over here is just a color code that'll show up better in one of the ones we look at later. Since this is a fiscal year 2022 estimate, that's brought forward by what the cost escalation is expected to be to this year's cost, and then what would it be for future costs. These future costs are escalated by both inflation, and there's a page for historic inflation plus predictions going forward, and also real cost increase and what's called quality cost increase. Real cost increase is a cost that's above inflation. A simple example you probably all know is catalytic converters recently. Recently, in the past year or so, costs have skyrocketed. because of what was happening on the global stage.
Stolen.
Out
of every job.
Yeah,
And that's
they
because of
were.
the cost of the metals.
Right.
So the replacement cost went sky high. That was not because of inflation, that was because of something else. In this case, what was happening in the global supply of those precious metals. Quality of cost increase, I don't think the name is really good. It'd be better if it was feature cost increase. One of the things that we buy where this is a really big factor is fire equipment. If you look at each new piece of apparatus that they buy and compare it with the piece that's being replaced, the new ones can do a lot more than the previous ones. For example, one of the apparatus I recently bought, the old one, firefighters, when they got to the scene, had to get out of the cab, go and open a cabinet, and take out their self-contained breathing apparatus. The new one, those are under the seats. They can exit the cab with the SCBAs on them. They, not too long ago, replaced SCBAs. The new ones, you can connect the radio to the SCBA so you can both breathe and talk at the same time. The old ones, you couldn't connect the radio to SCBA. So all of those things make the firefighters more effective and safer, but they also increase the cost of the equipment, and that's a cost above inflation. That firefighting apparatus has been going up at 5 to 7% a year. So that's 3 or 4% above inflation. So this tool calculates how much would you have to set aside or add to the reserve fund for the expenses that you've laid out. It also allows you to enter a margin for each year. This is a margin that's not carried forward, it's just available for each year, and if it wasn't used, it disappears. You can set a percentage of the expenditure for that year. So if you're expecting to spend $100,000 in 1 year, and you set this at 10%, it's going to calculate so that you will have $110,000 that year. But you can put limits on that. So in this case, it's set to a minimum of $5,000 and a maximum of $15,000. We could see some other examples where this is set to function a little differently, but it's the same inputs. Up here, it shows the calculated deposit. So $10,000 is $300. This current year we're in, $10,000 was appropriated. Here's how much is expected to be earned. No withdrawals this year, so what's the end of year balance? There's a place to put in deposit overrides. 2 functions for that. First, of course, you're not going to write one article for $10,361. You don't want 5 or 6 significant figures, so you're going to round it off. The other thing is that this shows level funding. The first year, it shows in bold. If the succeeding years are exactly the same amount, they're shown in gray so that it emphasizes to you where the changes are. Because it's going to calculate level funding for as long as it needs to, and then in the succeeding year, if it can drop down, it drops down to a lower level funding amount. Here, it goes on the same amount for the entire time. And up here is a summary of what's on this page and what's happening globally. So here, $219,000, 4 line items, all of them are listed as coming from the fund. This funding source over here can be F for funding. This just shows up on one of the earlier pages. F for funding, A2 was ARPA 2, AB was from the annual budget. LF is from the Library Foundation. Of course, that could only be on the library page. And B is from a bond. It will do bond calculations for a 20-year level principal bond. And X is for no funding planned. The expected use for the X is that you may have items that you would like to do. It would be good to do, it would be good if the town could afford it, but when you look at the total dollars needed and you set your priorities, there's gonna maybe something that you say, we really can't afford that. So it can stay on the list, you put an X there, so it's not counted as something that you're saving for, but it's still on the list. Next year, things may change. Occasionally, state or federal governments
Get a big
give
chunk.
you grants.
Mhm.
Occasionally, you find out that something that you thought was gonna be expensive turns out to not be as expensive, and so you may have money next year. So that's a reason for leaving it on the list, even though you're not, don't see a way to pay for it.
John,
Yeah.
do you have a minimum level that you let the trust funds go to? For instance, this one, after we're paying in 27 for the revaluation, you still have $40,000 in the fund.
Do we have a minimum? In this planning, it would just be either this 10% or the $5,000.
No, I meant the end of your balance in the trust fund. If you look up in the right-hand corner, but after you withdraw the 59,187 in 2027, you still have
Okay.
38,000. Is there a minimum level that you let that you keep the trust funds at?
No.
Okay. Is
No,
there a
it's-
reason
it's-
that one has so much money left in it?
Yeah, it's because of what comes afterwards.
Okay.
And you can see that because this funding is the same each
Okay.
year, that tells you that some of the money that you're putting away here is not for 2027, it's for further down the road.
Okay.
And-
But you
I
could have
see.
it
So it's way
focus.
out. It's
Yes.
way out.
In
Okay.
fact,
Yeah.
it's right here, it's 2042.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
that's where it is.
But you don't have this set up so it says, okay, never let the balance get below 100 grand in one of the accounts.
Actually, that shows up right here in 2042. So in 2042, that 50,000 has escalated to 79,658.
Yep.
And so 10% of 79,658 would be 79,66. So it's gonna make sure that you have at least 79,66 left. That's at
Yep.
10% margin.
Okay,
When it does
that's,
the
I guess the
calculation-
10% margin is what I was asking about.
Yeah.
But it's at any point in the future, it's not,
Correct. If you want to look at it, there's another 21 rows of calculations,
that's okay.
which is hidden
That's
right
okay.
now. And that amount has to be recalculated for every year going forward.
I see.
And some of the other pages, you'll see that it isn't uniform all the way out, it steps down. Some things like accrued benefits, let's see if you want this bigger. So accrued benefits, the percentage was set to 0, the minimum was set to 10,000, the maximum was set to 10,000. This was a choice that the select board made. In other words, they just decided we always want to have an extra $10,000. Should note that that is a margin that is not a distributed margin. So it's not that we're adding an extra $10,000 to each one of these items. In doing the calculation, it is expecting that that extra $10,000 is not used. If next year you found out it was used, then the inputs you're putting in here would be different. So yesterday, I worked with the library trustees, one library trustee, Emily, and our library director, Haley, to do these inputs. And this is good to show ways that you can enter a single purchase or a single item to have multiple funding sources. So from the Library Capital Reserve Fund in 2021, Article 7, the voters approved $100,000 for renovation and addition. Some of that money was spent 2 years ago. The select board voted to treat it as encumbered for an additional year, so it rolled over to the next year, 2023 fiscal year. In 2023, the library trustees signed a contract for doing the work, thereby encumbering it into this year. And that's the amount, $39,473 is the amount that's left over from the $100,000. And this past March, the voters voted for $35,000 for renovation to also come from that fund. So both of these are money that's being used for phase one, which is going on now, or will be used. The trustees haven't been, of course, requested a reimbursement yet. And then the library building, again, phase one. Phase one, the contract is for $612,283. Subtract out that $39,000, subtract out the $35,000, and subtract out $100,000, which is in this next line item, and you're left with $437,000 plus, and that's this estimated cost here to come from the fund, the Lee Library Building Capital Reserve Fund. And the $100,000 is again still part of phase one, but it's expected to come from the Library Foundation. Now, yesterday I was told that that $100,000 at this point is actually just a placeholder. That's not an amount that has been agreed to between the library trustees and the foundation, but I was told it's something like that. And these are all entered as competitive bids because they're a top level and A rating because it's the contract price, so you know that price. In addition, they had a couple of items that were that they had put into the CIP, HVAC systems improvement and hazardous materials mitigation. They wanted to show those, that they're still doing them, but in fact they're actually part of phase one. So that's why they're listed, but with a zero price, because it's actually included in this. That's probably a good practice, because it would make it clear that that item appeared last year, and it's not something that disappeared. It's still there, but it's part of this. They also have exterior improvements and basement refurbish, all to happen in this fiscal year. All of them except for the $100,000 to come from the fund. And the deposits this year were $200,000, and this ends up with an end-of-year balance of $7,000. And that's allowed because right now the minimum is zero, the percentage margin is zero, and the max is zero, so it's not going to save any extra.
Is there a formal process to submit a request for the CIP?
This isn't the CIP.
This isn't the CIP,
FBT.
and the CIP is modifying the practice.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put
We're
it.
working on it.
CIP is working on it. In the past, the CIP was a list like this. But the CIP only included things that department heads brought to the CIP. This spreadsheet is something that I had thought about for years because I had watched the select board at budget season at deliberative session, budget deliberation, when the budget, of course, is too big, often, and looking at the amount of money and comparing it with last year and saying, we need to take things out. And sometimes they would look at the CIP and find items in there that would say, no, we're not gonna purchase that, so we're gonna reduce the amount appropriated. But they'd be doing that without any calculation tool that actually calculates that if you take this item out, what does the appropriation change to? And this is a tool that lets them see that. So that was my motivation for writing it in the first place, and I tried several times and failed before I finally woke up one morning with the correct idea of how to write it. And then the Town Hall Renovation Committee recognized that there were a lot of town building needs that were not being planned for. This building was one of them. This building was expected to meet the size needs for 50 years, but there was no real planning for the air conditioning systems that are going to fail and the roof that's not a 50-year roof and so forth, and needs of other buildings at Town Center that weren't being planned for, including an office building. So the Town Hall Renovation Committee put items into the Town Hall worksheet that's here, and added it up to an amazing amount of around $4 million
That's terrifying.
in what's needed. And that item, that has done nothing but go up.
I guess my question is like, how does this fit into the CIP?
I can give you my personal opinion, okay? But when it comes to the FBT, I have two roles. One is just as the author of the spreadsheet. And then when I meet with department heads, my role is as a data entry clerk. I'm not questioning, you know, what's justification for this or that. It's just how do you
So who's
take-
doing that? Who's doing the questioning?
That then has to go to the select board. It's up to the select board to then do that questioning.
The select board really uses it as a guide when they look to warrant articles in particular.
Okay.
We're trying to figure out how much you're gonna save, what you're gonna ask for each year, where do you need to put money?
So are all these things on the CIP?
Nothing's on the CIP right now.
So-
Do we have a CIP, Pat?
We have a
At
CIP,
the
it's
moment,
just
at the moment, no.
Right.
Okay, so we don't have a CIP, which is why we're using this.
We're working on a CIP. It's very challenging because the way it was done before didn't make sense, but then we had to find a new way forward, and that was very challenging as well.
Okay.
So we're now
We're also trying not to duplicate what he's got.
Right.
Okay.
There's no future in that.
No,
The CIP is RSA orchestrated and
Right.
controlled as well. You don't necessarily have the freedom that someone like John has to
Right.
put together a plan like this, but there's very specific RSA language about how you create the CIP, who can do it, you know, it's either the planning board or appointees of the select board.
Yep.
Makes it a little bit of a different
But
animal.
you're kind
we're
of
trying to
starting over.
find, we're trying to find what each lane is. And there's a lot of overlap and trying to figure out, okay, so what is the role of each? And that's why during this conversation we decided that the budget committee should know about this option as well, as you're thinking about the budget and what's coming up and what should we pay for.
My function is to provide the tool. And to me, whether this is a tool that's strictly used by the select board, or it's a tool that's used by your committee,
It's available.
I think it bridges, I think it's a good bridge, because the select board puts together the warrant, that's their baby, the articles on the warrant are theirs, but when they come to the budget committee and ask you to approve the numbers, they can refer back to the financial planning tool and say, this is our, you know, strategy behind what we've got on the warrant for articles, and this is why we want this amount, and use the financial planning tool to make that make sense.
And then when they cut that, so what it says here that we need to be saving 300,000, and they're like, well, that seems too high, and let's make it 150. You can say, hey, like there's something, and you have something to show, wait, I'm worried about that.
so I'll pick on the library. I hope they don't
It'll be
mind.
the first time that's ever happened.
So, with what they've put in for what they would like to do, this coming fiscal year, they need to set aside an additional $365,000 into this capital reserve fund. And the next year, another $365,000. And the next year, another $365,000. And then it drops down to $78,000. If you went to town buildings, town hall, $864,000 as an appropriation to the capital reserve fund this coming year. Then 173,000, then 32,000. It is not my job, I don't take it on, to make the decision about, is that reasonable? If it's, what I want to present is, here's a tool where you can look at these amounts. And in fact, here, you look at this, total deposits for all funds. So this is a line that shows up on every tab. And this past year, the year we're in right now, the total appropriations to trust and reserve funds, public money, was $775,000. That's the check that the trustees of trust funds are received that I deposited in the bank in a money market before we distributed it to better places. And this is saying that with what's written in there right now, next year, if you did all of that and actually planned for it, that check would be $1.9 million.
But it's actually a fund.
I don't think it's going to be.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be a
So-
fund that's requested.
So it's not gonna be that. So, this is just with what's entered right now. And what's entered right now, actually, you can see many of these things are just Xed out.
So this is a wish list.
This is the
Yes.
wish list, but many of these things on the wish list are actually Xed out and not being paid for.
$2,387,453 worth.
And, yes, a lot of money. And the current amount, this was a page that, again, the select board requested, was how, just for town buildings, how much is listed for each of the town buildings. So here's all the town buildings, plus the library, and in fiscal year 2024, today's dollars, what is listed for each of them, and then sorted by dollar amount. So this is just what's listed, not necessarily what's planned to be funded, but what's listed for town buildings, and it's $6.7 million. So as strongly as I can, just as an advocate for the tool and for arithmetic, the tool should be used to make those decisions about what can we really afford, and if what we can afford is much less than what's showing now, and I'm sure it is, then what are the priorities? What things do we say, no, we can't afford that? And what things do we say, well, that's an absolute must. We're gonna have to figure out how to afford it some way.
And that's why after doing this project, it became very clear to some people that things that we want to do, that we like the idea of, like the parish house or things like that, we don't know where the funding will ever come for that. We don't know how we can afford that as a town, and so it makes it much clearer, like, okay, we have to think about what can we buy, what can't we buy.
And Mr. Tappan, we're already 4 minutes past 8.
Like I said, this is as much as what you want.
Where can I find a copy of this so I can poke around in it if I want to? Do we publish this to the town site so our constituents can see?
There's a static link, a link to a static copy of this in every e-crier.
Okay.
It's also on the webpage.
Okay.
But it isn't this particular version, so.
It is this version, and
So I
you
can-
can't manipulate it particularly.
Okay.
It's a PDF.
Can we have it in Excel version?
Yes. To give you an Excel version takes me a little bit of time to go and reset protection for all the formulas. Because otherwise, if you accidentally type in the formula.
I think that you can protect the whole sheet quite easily.
For 7 years of.
Yes.
Right.
No, each sheet gets protected.
And I mean, like, you can protect the whole workbook all at once. You don't have to do each sheet, I don't think.
If I want to be able to leave pieces that you can manipulate,
There you go.
then I do.
Okay.
So,
I don't really want to manipulate it, I just want to look at it.
oh, then you could just look at the PDF of it.
I want it in Excel though.
Use the Excel.
Okay. I could try to convert PDF to an Excel for you.
No, denied.
That's all I really want to see.
No, I can-
So Excel with all the restrictions, just to look at it.
Yes. I want to be able to do like a summation. I can't do a summation in PDF. Oh, and, thank you, Mr. Tappan. I propose that we adjourn the ABC meeting today.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, motion approved. Thank you.
And we don't have a meeting for 2 weeks?
Not one next week, there's one the following week, I believe.
The volunteer dinner.
Volunteer dinner next week, so come to that.
That is here, right? Where is
It's
it?
downstairs.
Downstairs.
Yeah.
We're gonna see if.
You're gonna be in New York?
New York York City or New York State somewhere?
Dutchess County, New York, probably with a day in the city.
Okay.
Friday.
And you volunteer
And you
to
train
eat,
down from Poughkeepsie.
Oh, wow, fun.
City.
you volunteer to eat dinner, right? That's what it is?
Volunteer to eat dinner, 100%. Let somebody take care
Well,
of
I
you.
might as well volunteer for that
I
too.
was gonna say,
Thanks, everyone.
night filling your time up.
No, I'm just, I get the information.
Stuff's been through too long, Brent. I almost got home last night.
Yeah?